Recently, Recent Answers hit a milestone of 500 subscribers. To celebrate, I'm announcing a chance for the Muslims watching to win $500.
Oh my god! Where are they? Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Islamic Defense Podcast. So, a few weeks ago, a brother asked me to respond to a video. Now, this video is done by a Christian apologetic who was, I think he was half asleep when he made the video. At least it seemed that way. So this guy made a $500 challenge to Muslims if you can refute his argument. So let's take a look at what challenge he made to Muslims, because he said that apparently he's gonna challenge us to refute his argument, and if we can refute his argument, he's gonna give us $500.
£300, £400. Crook!
And you know, it's the same shtick that David Wood has pulled. It's the same shtick that many Christian apologetics pull. You know, hey, look at us, look at me, Muslims. You know, I'm gonna pay you. But when Muslims actually do response, you know, as it turns out, it's a bunch of nonsense. They do this for drama and clout. But regardless, let's see what this guy has to say.
Islam is being challenged intellectually for the first time in its 1400-year history.
Look at this dude. Wait till you see the...
And people are leaving Islam in record numbers.
No.
As more and more Muslims leave, the exodus will pick up speed until it becomes an avalanche of apostasy.
Look at the top of his head.
By the way, I don't know what is stranger, the fact that this guy thinks that Islam has never been challenged for 1400 years of history, or the fact that he is somehow able to shoot the whole video without falling asleep. I mean, look at this guy. He looks like he's just begging to go to sleep. He looks so tired. Regardless, this is a lie. Islam has a long history of apologetic and polemics. Wallahi, we even have a famous poem by medieval scholar Ibn Qayyim criticizing Christianity. Here, I'm gonna play a clip from the channel Simple Series, so you guys can check that out.
عباد المسيح لنا سؤال نريد جوابه ممن وعاه إذا مات الإله بصنع قوم أماتوه فما هذا الإله. Now it's funny that he claims that Islam is being challenged for the first time, when in reality we have a nearly 700-year-old diss track against Christianity. Now, I know Christian apologetics tend to be quite lazy when it comes to Islam and Islamic history, but this is like whole another level. So yes, this is a complete lie. For 1400 years, Islam was born in the midst of Christianity, Judaism, and paganism. I mean, Arabia at that time was a melting pot of religion. So the idea that Islam has never been challenged is absurd. Like, the history of Islam and Islamic thought is the history of polemics. It's the history of apologetic. I mean, our scholars have written thousands and volumes of books refuting Christianity, refuting Judaism. Regardless, let's continue.
The Quran states, "If thou art in doubt regarding what we have sent down to thee, ask those who recite the book before thee." Well, I am very much in doubt about the authenticity of Muhammad's revelation. Muslims debate whether this challenge was intended for Muhammad or people in general. But either way, it's clear that the author of the verse expected the book, elsewhere defined as the previous revelations known as Torah and Gospel, would confirm the Quran, at minimum during the 7th century when it was revealed. The Quran also states, "Jesus, son of Mary, said, 'Children of Israel, I am indeed the messenger of God to you, confirming the Torah that is before me, and giving good tidings of a messenger who shall come after me, whose name shall be Ahmed.'" Who is Ahmed, you might ask? The truth is, no one knows. Muslims will of course say that Ahmed is another name for Muhammad, but they only think that because of this verse. Some scholars think Ahmed was a late addition to the Quran. For example, there's no evidence that any male child was named Ahmed in the first 125 years of Islam.
I love you, God! Damn, a true,
Wow, what an incredible claim. There has been no one named Ahmed in the first 125 years of Islamic history. Anyway, this is a lie. Prophet ﷺ himself said in a Sahih hadith, Jabir bin Mut'im reported on the authority of his father that he heard Allah's Messenger ﷺ saying, I have many names. I am Muhammad, I am Ahmed, I am Al-Mahi, through whom Allah obliterates unbelief. I am Hashir, the gatherer, at those feet people will be gathered, and I am Aqib, after whom there would be none, and Allah has named him as compassionate and merciful. You can read about this in Sahih Muslim 2354. So here we can clearly see that Prophet ﷺ himself clarified that his name was Ahmed. Regardless, let's continue.
Let's be generous and leave all that aside. The challenge is then this. Find any gospel manuscript from the 7th century or earlier that contains this alleged prophecy of Jesus. I'll make it real simple. All you have to do is find the name Ahmed in the words of Jesus, not even the whole phrase. And I'll even accept the name Muhammad instead of Ahmed. I'll accept it in any version. The Greek, the Latin Vulgate, the Old Latin, Coptic, any of the numerous dialects of Ethiopian, Syriac, Armenian, or even Gothic. The first Muslim to provide manuscript evidence of this prophecy wins $500. Legal details are in the pinned comment.
Here he's commenting begging the question fallacy. Here is his argument. Everything that Jesus said is recorded in a manuscript form. Premise 2. If everything about Jesus is written down in a manuscript form, then the prophecy of Jesus about Prophet Muhammad mentioned in the Quran should also be written down in a manuscript form. Conclusion. Therefore, Muslims must provide evidence of a manuscript which mentions the prophecy of Jesus about Prophet Muhammad mentioned in the Quran. Now, if you notice carefully, the second premise does not follow from the first premise, because it begs the question, what makes him think that everything about Jesus is recorded in a manuscript form? He never justified this premise. Hell, forget everything. How does it know anything from Jesus is recorded in the New Testament? Because the truth is, we have no idea who wrote the New Testament. There is no chain of transmission. All the supposed saying of Jesus might not even be from him. It could either be complete fabrication or a distortion. Now, if you go by this argument, then the first premise obviously becomes false, and this argument becomes a non sequitur. But that'd be too easy. So let's give our Christian friends some benefit of the doubt. Let's make it easy for them, right? Especially if we go by completely from an Islamic perspective, this type of argument becomes very illogical. So let's make it easy for them. Let's go by their logic. Okay? Let's say, for the sake of argument, that what they're saying is correct. Okay, some of it. Let's say that what is recorded in the Gospels are the word of Jesus, but even then, we have very little information about Jesus, about the life of Jesus. Earl Crow, who is a major in religion from Duke University and who is also a professor and has a PhD from the University of Manchester, in an article titled "Why Do We Know So Little About Jesus' Life," wrote the following. Other historians and politicians gave limited information about Jesus' life, but they were aware of the Christian movement. Pliny, the younger Roman governor of Bithynia, present-day Turkey, wrote to the Roman Emperor Trajan about 112 AD, seeking advice as to how to deal with the growing Christian movement. Tacitus, a Roman senator and historian, and Suetonius, by the way, I'm sorry if I'm butchering this name, these are really tough names to pronounce regardless, a Roman historian, both mentioned the Jesus movement. Most of what we know is in the New Testament, primarily the 4 Gospels. Even the Gospels, we learn little about his early life and few historically supportable facts about his adult life. Much of the information in the New Testament was passed along orally and recorded at a later date. Only Matthew and Luke mentioned his birth, and they presented slightly different accounts. From two passages in Luke, we know that by the age of 12, Jesus was smart and we knew his mission. After being separated from their son, his parents found him in a temple in Jerusalem, sitting in the midst of teachers both listening and asking questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and all his answers. He said to his parents, "Why is that you're looking for me? Did you not know that I had to be in my Father's house?" Mark noted in 6:3, "And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man." We can wonder about the means by which Jesus became so wise. Was Jesus infused with knowledge and wisdom by God, or did he find ways to study? The gospel then leaped forward almost 20 years to account of his public ministry, which lasted at most 3 years. So according to the professor, Christian scriptures like the New Testament mention very little about Jesus. As a matter of fact, from his birth to the age of 12, we almost have little to no information about Jesus. And this is a long period of time. Then we have another gap of nearly 20 years till he started preaching. And even then, we still have very little information about what he actually said. Also, on top of that, Matthew and Luke gives contradictory reports. And from that, we can logically conclude that we know very little to nothing about Jesus. And that's troublesome. We know little to nothing about what he said, how he became a prophet, etc., etc. So it logically follows that if Jesus did mention Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we have no reason to think that this is something that has been recorded. Or even if it was recorded, we have no reason to think that it is something that would survive to this day. Also, there's nothing in the Quran that says that this specific prophecy can be found in some kind of manuscript, in a manuscript form. So your little challenge fails because of two reasons. Number one, we have no reason to think that this prophecy is something that is recorded. Two, even if it was, we have no reason to think that it survived till this day. Especially because this statement by Jesus would be considered heretical by the early church fathers. Because Jesus said that he is a messenger, not the Son of God or anything like that. So basically we have the canon of the Bible, right? First we have the canon of the Old Testament, then we have the canon of the New Testament. But here's the thing. A lot of books from both the canon of the Old Testament and the New Testament is completely lost. Like, we have no idea what happened to these books. And some books are considered quote-unquote non-canon. Now this term non-canon is very vague because we even have very little information why they're considered non-canon. And some of the reasons as to why they're considered non-canon, like the people, like the early church father, in some cases don't even get to express why they think they're non-canon because of missing information. Like, even about the life of early church father, we have little to no information. So this is a disaster. If you look at this if you look at these lost books of New Testament carefully, you will notice that most of these books were considered quote-unquote heretical. Now this makes you think, like, is this a coincidence that all these supposed missing books just happens to be they just happen to be heretical, quote-unquote? No, it's more likely that either that early church fathers got rid of these books by destroying them or just hid them. Especially because many of the early church fathers were actually promoting the divinity of Jesus Christ. So it is very much possible that they either burned them or simply didn't preserve them or hid them from the public. For example, here is a list of lost books in the New Testament that are considered quote-unquote heretical. For example, there is the Gospel of Matthias, which is completely lost. For example, 1st century Greek Christian theologian and philosopher Titus Flavianus, Clement of Alexandria, who quoted several passages from the Gospel of Matthias, saying, and this is what he said, they were borrowed from the tradition of Matthias, Paradoisis, sorry again if I'm butchering the names, the testimony of which he claimed to have been invoked by heretics, Valentius. Now these are people that the church father considered as heretics. Valentius, Marcion, and Basilides. By the way, we have very little to no information about these people either. Anyway, so Marcion and Basilides. You can read about this in Stromres by Clement of Alexandria. Also, not just that, we have countless evidence of early Christians destroying books that they consider quote-unquote heretical. For example, in an article in the New York Times, How Christians Destroyed the Ancient World, writer Brittany Hughes wrote a few highlights from Catherine Nix's book, The Darkening Age, where she says, Christians did fetishize dogma. In AD 386, a law was passed declaring that those who contend about religion shall pay with their lives with blood. Now, this is Christians saying this. Books were systematically burned. The doctrinal opinion of one of the most celebrated early church fathers, Saint John, he is of the Golden Mouth, were enthusiastically quoted in Nazi Germany 1500 years after his death. And he said, "The synagogue is a den of robbers and a lodging for wild beasts, a dwelling of demons." That books were systematically burned. So this proves that early Christians burned various different books. In a letter in another place, she describes the horrors of Christian zealousy inflicting upon the people. So she says, in Haran, the locals refused to convert. They were dismembered, their limbs hung from the town's main street. In Alexandria, zealots pulled the elderly philosopher mathematician Hypatia from her chariot and flayed her to death with shards of broken pottery. Not long before, their fellow Christians had invaded the city's greatest temple and razed it, smashing its world-famous statue and destroying all that was left of Alexandria's great library. Not only this, we also see more evidence from the New Testament itself, where the authors describe the Christians burning books that disagrees with them. For example, in the Acts it says, "Many of those who believed now came and openly confessed what they had done. A number who had practiced sorcery brought their scrolls together and burned them publicly. When they calculated the value of the scrolls, the total came to 50,000 drachmas. In this way, the word of the Lord spread wider and grew in power." You can read about this in Acts 19:18 and 18-20. So here we can clearly see that the New Testament itself testifies and admits that Christians were burning books, that books, especially books that they consider heretical. Also, after the First Council of Nicaea, the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great issued an edict against non-Trinitarians, basically Christians who did not believe in the Trinity. And the edict and Arians, which included a prescription of systematic book burning. He said, "In addition, if any writing composed by Arius should be found, it should be handed over to the flames, so that not only will the wickedness of his teaching be obliterated, but nothing will be left even to remind anyone of him. I hereby make a public order that if someone should be discovered to have hidden a writing composed by Arius," by the way, Arius is the guy who I think one of the early leaders who did not believe in the Trinity, but regardless, writing composed by Arius, and not to have immediately brought it forward and destroyed it by fire, his penalty shall be death. As soon as he is discovered in this offense, he shall be submitted for capital punishment. You can read about this defense of the Nicene definition by Athanasius. Also, according to American religious scholar Elaine Pagels, in AD 367, Athanasius, the jealous bishop of Alexandria, issued a Easter letter in which he demanded that Egyptian monks destroy all such unacceptable writings, except for those he specifically listed as acceptable, even canonical, a list that constitutes the present New Testament. You can read about this in Beyond Belief, the Secret Gospel of Thomas by Elaine Pagels. Also, according to author Deborah Knuth, multitude of early Christian texts have been as thoroughly destroyed as if they had been publicly burnt. You can read about this in Burning Books and Leveling Libraries by Rebecca Knuth. So as you can clearly see, the early church fathers destroyed any books or any writings that they considered heretical. Based on this, let me make an argument. Premise 1. Recent answers demand that Muslims provide manuscript evidence of Jesus prophesying about Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because according to him, all of Christian history is recorded and it shouldn't be hard to find. We said that early church fathers lied to the public, possibly lied to the public. In books like the extended version of the Mark, we also see multiple evidence of thousands of book burnings, especially books that the early church fathers considered heretical. We also see that we have little to no information of Jesus and what he said, which contradicts Reason Answers' assumption that Christian historical records are all preserved. Conclusion. Therefore, Reason Answers' demand to see evidence of this prophecy of Jesus about Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is completely unjustified. Either it was never recorded, or it was lost, or it was hidden or destroyed as heretical teachings. Or it is also possible that we might find a manuscript which proves this, but that's highly unlikely. However, this being said, we do have description of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ being mentioned in the Bible. Although he's not called out by name specifically, as this specific prophecy states, but he's still mentioned. And if you want to know more about this, then check out my videos that I did in response to video vids about Prophet Muhammad being mentioned in the Bible. Inshallah, I'll put it in the pinned comment. I'll put it in the description, inshallah. Either way, the challenge by Reason Answers is a complete failure, and it's completely fallacious to demand this of the Muslims, especially because when we have so much evidence of corruption in the early history of Christianity. Now, if you are a Christian, I want you to ask yourself this question. Why is it that your apologetics are lying to you about Islam and Islamic history? Why are they suppressing Christian history? I mean, it is quite obvious that the Christian destroyed a lot of historical data. So why didn't Reason Answer mention this? I think these are questions that you should probably ask yourself. The answers might not be that comfortable, but it might be the truth. Either way, I'm done. I think I'll make another video on this guy, inshallah. Till then, take care. If you guys like my content, then please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. And also, if you really like my content, then please consider becoming a Patreon. It would really help me a great deal. And also, if you want to help me on YouTube, then you can also become a member. If you can see the join button down below, you can use that to become a member. And yeah, again, thank you for watching, and jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.